years. I came over here in 2005. I worked for Terry Leskevich for about 11 years, who actually played volleyball with Mick back in the 40s. So I've had, a lot of, Mick was talking earlier about the 3-number system, and Terry would give us regular history lessons, and we'd often hear about all of those things, and exactly like Rob said, I was like, thank God we don't have that anymore. But, so I will have some Americanisms, because I've been in America, but I can tell you that's 3 metres, that's 9 metres, that's 18 metres long, it's 10 degrees Celsius outside. I can tell you all of those things without a problem. And it's kilometres, and it's way better. So I can get at least that side of the metric system worked out pretty well. I've converted to miles. I have not converted very well to Fahrenheit. That's my one weakness of system. If someone says it's 70 degrees, it doesn't mean anything to me. If they say it's 20 degrees Celsius, then I know that's good. So, anyhow, so a little bit about my metric background. All right, this evening, this little part we're doing is on well, I guess it's defence, but it's defensive systems. And within that defensive systems, we're going to look at the individual skills of digging, we're going to look at the individual skills of blocking, and then we're going to look at the team system of combining those two things together, which is obviously probably the most important of that. And the thing about defence, I think, is we will often spend a long time working on offence. Hey, let's get the tempo of this set right, let's get the hitter on this set, let's get back row, let's get right side, let's have this, that and the other. And so we do, we spend a long time on our offensive structure. And then when we play defence, we say, let's just stand in the same spot every time. And we don't often apply the same amount of intellectual energy towards defence as we do necessarily with offence. We just say, go hard, dig more balls. Sure, that's what you want to do, but how are you going to do that? And so one of the things we'll talk about with our systems, and I'll show you on videos from the Pac-12 last year, 3 different defensive systems that you'll see just even within the Pac-12. So we'll talk a little bit about those. There's pros and cons to everything. When you're talking about a defensive system, you can't just talk about where you stand, you've got to talk about how you block, etc. So we'll go into that. So we'll kind of evolve as we go through. I'll also show you some of the drills we do with each of those particular sections to help your athletes get a little better at those. All right, so defence, you've got blocking, you've got individual digging, and then you've got this combination of your front row and back row working in tandem with each other to be good defensively. The first one we're going to look at is the individual skill of blocking. So we're going to look at from the basics of stance, movement, arms, and maybe most importantly eyes. And then we're going to kind of develop it from there. We'll look at digging, and then, like I said, we'll look at the combination of those two at the end. So let's get a few of our demo people out here. So I'm not just going to drop like those names in the audience. I don't know how you do that. I'm struggling to remember these 4 kids, but I'll get them right. So we'll talk a little bit about blocking, and especially at the younger age group, depending on how old your kids are, when do you start blocking? That's always a good question. If you've got young 12Us, etc., do you start there? Well, can the other team hit the ball down? If the other team can hit the ball down, that's a great time to start blocking. Can your players jump and get their hands over the net? Yes, no. No, that's maybe not a great time to necessarily start blocking. But you've got to work in when you start that with the younger age groups. So we'll just start. We won't do it on there. It's a little bit easier to show. So this is Claudia. Got that right. All right, so from a blocking perspective, first thing we'll do is look at just a basic setup stance, and you can imagine that the net is along here and she's facing you. So we want our blockers in a position where they're balanced, they're ready to move. Like a lot of things, when they're digging, you want them balanced and ready to move. When they're about to serve, receive, the whole lot. The same with blocking. The skill really with blocking is the ability not to get sucked in by the setter. That's the number one hard thing. And reading a setter it's a skill that good blockers need to get good at. But here's a couple of things that are going to reduce your ability to read. One is when middles run and you start moving left and right, or the setter moves forward and you move, or she backs up and you move. Once you start moving around, it's going to make it a lot more difficult. So we want you to be able to have a good balanced position here, and we want your focus on ball being passed, setter setting the ball, release of the ball, and then finding the hitter. So we want you to work in that with that eye sequence. And I'll give you, we do this very basic drill. Now and then, not so often, but it's a good reminder of eye work to do. So we will get you on the net now. So let's get two of you on the other side of the net. Who's the setter of this group? You're the setter, right? You stay on this side. Get three of you on the other side. We just call this on, off, over. This is an eye training exercise, and it's chanting. It's like a cult. And the chants are easy for you. They go better here. So firstly, this is on. Yeah, that makes sense? Off is this. And then over is the ball going over the net. I don't need to demonstrate that. So, the first thing you've got to do, all three of you can be on the net and do this one. So you can be in a balance, ready position, reading, is just saying on, off, or over when I tell you. On, right. Next one. On. All three. Over. Right. And off. Okay. So, is it the on, off, over that's important? No, to a degree. The important thing is that they're identifying where the ball is. So they're watching where the ball goes. That's number one. Number two, part two to this, is now how you will be setting the ball to the left, front, or the right front. So let's get a target first hand in the front, over here, and one in the right front, and two, right. So, you've got to be loud enough for everyone to hear. This is on, off, over, one of those three, and then left, right. Got it? Okay. All right, here we go.
Left.
Okay.
On, right.
Right, okay.
Yep.
Okay, one more.
Off, left.
Left. Okay, so now you're training your eyes just to watch the setter. Where are they setting the ball, left or right? So on, off, over, left or right. Last one is, now the people catching the ball, you're going to either do a fist or you're going to do a hand. Whichever one you want. But as the ball gets set, it's on, off, over, left, fist, or left hand. Got it? All right, here we go.
On, right, hand.
Hand. On, right, hand. Okay, next one.
Off, left, hand.
Right, okay. So all we're doing by her naming what's going on is just training her eyes to watch the sequence of events. Because what blockers do a lot, and you've all, I have no doubt, seen this, is the ball comes into the setter and then they start scanning everything. The hitters can't go anywhere. They're going to come into a certain zone along the net. You know, you've got 9 metres along the net, but they're starting to look around and move before the setter's even set the ball. The key to watching what's going on is after you know where the set's on, especially when it's a good set, a good pass, is watching this part here, this window there, or maybe it's a back set window. That's the key. Because once the ball gets delivered out of this window here, you know where the ball's going. That's got to be your focus area for your eyes. So on, off, over, and then this window right about here above the setter where you're seeing them deliver the ball. That's what you need to read, because once the ball's delivered, you then make your decision on, am I going left, am I going right, am I staying where I am? So that's a very basic eye exercise. Like I said, the most common one is ball, setter, ball, hitter. That's what that is. But we've just given it on, off, over. The other one you can throw in there, depending on how you do this. Before you set the ball now, you're going to do a fist or a hand. So on, off, over, fist, hand, left, fist, hand. All right, here we go.
On, fist, right, hand.
Yeah, we should need to do it. All right, let's do one more.
On, fist, left, hand.
Hey, good. So, on, she's identifying this, so she's now having to look at the setter to see whether she's doing that or that. So we're training her eyes to go in the right spot. So that's one. That's the first part of really training her eyes on what to look at. The second thing is, let's get the three of you on the other side. Yeah. So the second part is once you identify what they're doing with delivering the ball is being able to then make that initial first step. So we'll repeat this a lot with our blockers. So let's have a line, just in the middle only. You're going to be in a nice balanced ready position. The distance from the net, you'll see people start up with their arms about here. That's a pretty good estimation of where you want to be. The closer you are to the net, the more you're going to block straight up, and where is the ball going to go? Straight down the front of you. So you want to give yourself that little bit of distance, but you don't want to be so far back that you can't get over the net. So, finding that kind of sweet spot for the blocker, distance from the net. So, I'll start there. We're not going to do the chanting part now. Let's assume that we're pretty good at doing that. You're going to be balanced. I'm going to be tossing to the centre, and I want you to make a step in the correct direction, just that first step. You don't have to get all the way out. Ready? All right. And you can be as tricky as you want to be. I got you. 1-0 setup. Next one. Ready? 3, 1. Next. Ready to set up. Ready to go. One more. Got you. You move to the other way. Ready, done. Alright, that was a little setup. So, basic reps of the middle blocker, and even your outside blockers over there, working on reading the setter and making that initial step. And you can see, you can make a little false step one way or the other. Yeah, can you get away with it if the ball's high enough? For sure. But once you get to the teams that are able to set accurately and low to the outside, it's very difficult to make up that distance. So getting caught moving in the wrong direction can be very difficult. Caught going down or jumping with the middle when they don't get set. You've seen all of those type of things. So that skill of reading as a blocker, whether you be middle blocker, left front or right front, is a key skill. And we spend a reasonable amount of time on just games like that where it'll be the setter versus the blockers. We just toss it to the setter, and the setter can do anything they want. They can lean back like this and set it forward. The whole idea is that the middle or the blockers really focus on what's the correct thing to watch. And to develop a little further, you ready? Same thing again. We can move the setter around. So we move it forward. Oh, that's not there. Right, back her up a little. Oh, that's 2-0 to the center. Must be and stop there. Alright. Gotcha again. So, as you can see, maybe position-wise they don't do a lot of this necessarily, but the focus still, because once the setter starts moving around, the thing you don't want to do as a blocker is start moving around. You want to be very disciplined at holding your position. Now, your off or defensive strategy may be to move. If there's a middle running a 31, you might move out towards that middle bit. So there may be some movement in there, but at the point of contact, when the setter's got the ball in their hands, you as a blocker need to be in a balanced, ready to move position, because you don't know where the ball's going to go. Setters have tendencies, absolutely. Some will go forward and back set. Some will set from here when they're setting forward and here when they're setting backwards. Some, I think Rob pointed it out earlier, will do this. So you know they're probably going to back set the ball. So there's things you can pick up as a blocker to give you a little, maybe, head start. But the higher level you get, the better the setters are at taking the ball in the same position each time and being in a good position each time, the harder it is for then the middle player or any of the other blockers to read. So reading, number one, I would say, to spend time on as far as, well, it's a skill of blocking for sure, but it's, it's not, you don't have to read, you don't have to move a lot. But you certainly have to be patient and you can't get sucked in or faked out. Any questions on that type of thing?
From a technique point of view, do you have the kids looking at ball, player, ball, or read ball, or player, ball, player? The blocking.
So player as in the passer?
No, from a once the setter gets the ball, do you read it as a ball, player, ball, as in you watch the set, and then watch the player, and then watch the ball again?
No. We do, well, we're going to go into that.
Okay.
It's got a good segue to get into there. So, what we do is once the ball is released and in the air, we focus our attention almost solely on the hitter. Because once the ball goes to a point, the hitter's going to run to where the ball takes them to. So once you know, and you have, when you watch the release of the ball, you actually watch it go further than just out of their hands. If you were to watch, I don't know how well you can see this over there. So let's stand over on the right. Yeah, so you're blocking, just moving a little bit there. I just want you to back step, which go out to the right side and that. Yep. So I want you to read the setup. And I want you to see if you can see her eyes, or at least see her face where she goes. So that's what you do. Right, so you go back step. There. There. One more time. Hitter. Yeah, you're pretty late to get hit by the ball. I think once the ball's left and it's getting towards, I don't know, a third to a halfway through its trajectory, so getting up towards the peak, you really need to be on the hitter, because now you've picked up how high the ball's going to go, you've picked up the width of the ball, so at that point, as you see that, you're going to see the hitter. If as long as they haven't done something tricky, you're going to have some peripheral vision on the hitter, and then it's on the hitter. Because they're going to run to where the ball is most of the time, and they're going to tell you whether maybe there's somebody that doesn't disguise a tip particularly well, so they're going to have a slower approach. They're going to have their arm up. All the information about what's going to happen is going to come from the approach of that hitter. And you'll see a lot of blockers do this. They'll spend a long time, and then at the very last second, they're on the hitter, and the hitter's gone. You don't see the hitter whether they've approached that way, whether the hitter's approached this way, and they've beaten you. So really getting an eye on them as early as you can in their approach is going to make it a lot easier for you to block. And I would say that you don't really need to go back to the ball again. Because like I said, unless they're running to the wrong spot, then they're not going to get the ball anyhow. So that's the final part of eye work for the blockers. All right. So, they've read well. Now, how do they get to the outside? Now, it's easy. You look at, the high-level, college level volleyball. You look at international level volleyball. They can cover a lot of ground very quickly. Smaller players, it's going to be very difficult for them to get from the middle to the outside. So let's have you all start in the middle on the outside. Yep, everyone start in the middle on the outside. Assuming we want to get them out to about, 3 feet inside the antenna, hopefully there's an antenna. What's your Wi-Fi? Good. Yeah, that's a nice width there. All right. Let's just have a look and see how they move out there, and then we can talk a little bit about their footwork. So let's go. Now, like that. Yeah, we'll talk about drifting in a minute. Okay. Alright, so you can see they all have similarities, well, probably exactly the same in the way they move. They step in the direction of getting out there and they cross over. So there's one more here. So we've got a step, crossover, and back around. One more. Step, crossover, there. One of the things I would say with the blocking here is, as a middle, you probably need to get off the ground a little quicker. Is it necessary? Is it necessary to do what Natalie does? So Natalie goes to do, which is, and stop. You'll see she really gets around here and then jumps. Do you have time for that? A lot of blockers will get across here and they'll get to here at 45 degrees and then they'll go over. So I don't think it's necessary to get your left foot or your right foot, if you go that way, all the way back around on the net. Because you can jump and have your upper body independent to your lower body do what it needs to do. So let's go over there again. So this goes a lot faster. So you see there when she took off, her feet are more at 45 degrees. Let's do exactly the same thing again. We go straight over. There. So you don't need to get out here and get planted and then jump. That extra time that it takes to get there may be the difference in you being over when the ball hits your hands compared to being maybe up and the ball hits you down, hands comes down. Let's say you are now at the middle drawn a little bit this way because you want to help out and stop at 31. How are you going to get over there now? Well, let's see. So let's say you've moved not all the way. Let's go in a little further. I'm at 31, you never arrive. So how are you going to get over there now?
I don't know.
Just go. There's no... Did you trip on a turtle as it ran by you? A bit faster than that. So start here. Okay. So you get dragged out of the position. Now you've got a long way to go. So you can shuffle to the middle and then go. You know what I mean? So try that. So you're helping out a bit on the 31. You don't come that way. That's definitely tough, mate. But yeah, let's say you're there and you can take a quick shuffle and go. Shuffle and go. To cover a little bit more ground. Because if you say to your blocker, you must always cross over, they can't get there from there. You may not want them to get there from there. That may be too far. But having a combination of being able to use a shuffle step with a crossover step, just a crossover step, you may be in a position where, let's say you get to the outside here, the hitter hits the ball, you block it, it gets covered, you really don't have much time to get anywhere. So you may need to make it a little bit towards the middle, they reset you again, and you'll shut across. So, combination of footwork is important for blockers to be able to do. They shouldn't just be always, I know some people like to have that approach style stepping to give and gather momentum, but you'll be shocked at the difference when you cross over, jump and reach to when you stand, jump and reach. There is a difference, but it's not as big as you think.
Would you train at higher levels, not planning her left foot, like doing her swing block, like without planning her left foot? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So when she gets out to the outside,
she doesn't plant her left foot. She just comes off her right foot and sort of drifts.
Ooh, I haven't. You see it, because blockers know they're late and they just want to get their hands on the ball. I just think, you've got a little bit of a, because you're going to take off, and then you are going to drift, but you're going to land on this leg. Yeah. And then you're probably going to land on feet, and whether it's the hitters or whether it's the blockers, that would be like I said, I think that situation that's going to be a risky deal, getting out there doing that kind of thing. But blockers will do it because, like I said, they'll try to get out there when they're late and so on. But I as much as you can with blocking, we talked about drifting earlier, so we'll get Natalie again. So you just block out and do a little drift you did earlier. So do it wrong. You can do it wrong. Okay? Alright, so there, so I didn't really drift. Still, when she took off, she drifted a little bit earlier. We really want the blockers as much as possible to land back in their footprints. However, one thing we've spent probably the last year or more on is having a blocker when they land, to land just a little bit more open. For the simple reason of getting off the net. And once again, your bottom half of your body can, due to your hips, can not have to do the same thing. So if you land open, doesn't mean you're going to block like this. You can still be like that. So let's try moving out there. Let's just move in a bit more so that running the box. So you know what I mean? So when you land, rather than landing on 2 feet, well, you will land on 2 feet. You're going to land, but so you're going to block. You got that? Yep. So you can get off the net. All right, let's try that. When you're ready, and land. Yeah, now you did open up a little bit more. You can see your shoulders are here. Trying to keep them, you don't have to make it as dramatic as that. But we're just looking at a way of being able to move quickly from a blocking position to get back off the net and attack. So that's maybe the most, we've had that kind of slightly unbalanced, I'd say that's a slightly unbalanced landing, a little bit, but just the ability then to get back off the net is I think the next step on from blocking, but that's into attacking, so someone else has got that.
Would you recommend swing block or standard blocking for club levels?
Both. I think there's a place for both.
Okay.
The thing about swing blocking, your footwork, I think it's really about how your feet get your body out there, and how quickly they get you out there, and how well they put you in position. So I think turning, as we were demonstrating earlier, where we're crossing over steps, so move out there. Cross over. You can use that style of footwork, but not necessarily swinging. Yeah. But I know for a lot of players, they feel as though they can generate a little more momentum, they can go a little quicker, and they can get up a little higher. So, but swing blocking, it requires a little bit more in the ability to time, because if you're out there and you're waiting, you can wait and watch and get over. Swing blocking requires a little more practicing, getting used to when you're going to block, and also getting from here to this position, not from here to this position. So, but you know, I think initially, what you really want to be able to do is emphasise with your block is get your hands over the net. Number one. So we'll do this. Coming on, warm up here. All right. So I will stand with the ball. So just something simple like that, where you hit the ball up so that they get the feel of getting their hands over the net. That's what it's about. Because you can do all the blocking drills in the world and they can be like this. And as soon as you set a ball and a live hitter comes in, they're back to this. It's a very hard, you've got to do a lot of blocking reps to get a decent block out. It's like almond milk. You've got to crush a lot of almonds to get a little bit of milk. You've got to block a lot and repetitively do a lot of that to get your blocking work. And blocking's a hard one because as a skill, it's not that difficult for volleyball. When you look at volleyball, that's all you do is stand with your hands over the net. But it's a very hard skill to do well. And it's a skill that you don't get a lot of, when you swing at a ball, you may get a kill 30, 40, 50% of the time. When you block, you probably don't get a stuff block 30, 40, 50% of the time. Nowhere near that. So your value for what you do is a lot less. It's just it's one of those skills that's essential to your team for sure. But you don't always get a lot of feedback about it. But good blocking is not necessarily always killing the ball. It might be slowing the ball down. It might be channeling the ball to a certain part of the court. It may be get 1 or 2 blocks on the hitter and change what the hitter does. That happens a lot. You see that hitters get blocked once or twice, and then the likelihood of a tip or a roll or another error is much higher than it was before. So that's the basic things about, just the skill of blocking itself. The other one, the last one related to hands. How many times do you see this when people block? A lot. Every level. So let's try this. We've done this one. This has varying levels of success. So let's get you on the other side. Let's just get, you can bring it up the other side. So move out of there. So you be that hand. No, you can be the holder. When you block, unless the ball comes at an extreme angle and brushes across that hand and that hand, it hits one hand. And so this is great when the ball hits this hand. But you have a very small area that you've now covered on the net. So working on the ability to having independent hands, block independent with your hands. So this drill is one where we have a held ball and we have a live ball. And the idea is you touch the held ball and you block the live hitting ball. So you get used to that concept of individual hands doing the blocking. So, all right, so we'll get you standing up on there, the ball. Yeah. All right, I want you to hold the ball just about there. Yeah. All right. Now, you're going to start in here, then move across a bit to your left. All right. This is Rozelle's holding our held ball. I'm going to have the live hitting ball. I probably wouldn't stand there. All right, so what's going to happen, we'll do it without me hitting the stuff. So you're going to get out of block. I want your right hand to go onto that ball, and then your left hand about where it was there. You got it? All right, I'll bounce the ball, go. So that is your left hand. So you're trying to touch. She touched that. She didn't. Okay. There you go. Yeah. Ready? Go. Touch and you've got to touch. You've got to get out there and you've got to touch this ball. Right, go. And so you twist it on that one. That was the drift that I was trying to get her to do earlier. Alright, there you go. So just back there. One more. Get out there. Okay, and then we can switch around. So Roselle, you'll go on the inside. So your inside hand, your left hand will be on the ball, your right hand, you block. Yep. Perfect. This one, the thing for the coaches is you need to be accurate. You've only got one hand to hit there. So that drill is good for them getting the concept of this, not this, or when they put their hands close together. So it's a good one for getting them to separate their hands a little bit. I've seen it done as just a one blocking drill, where they'll block with one arm. Much the same, but I think you want to get used to the feel, the kinesthetic of this, as opposed to doing that. So using the two hands there, both left side and right side, you work their left hand and right hand. And emphasising a couple of things about, if you want the ball to go on the floor over there, then that's where your palm needs to face. And it's really, you can block poorly by reaching outside your body and doing this stuff, but if your hands are in the right spot, you can get away with it to a degree. You don't want to do that. You want to get your arms and hands in the right spot, but your palms is where the ball's going to hit. So you want your palms angled. Some people say, well, on the outside you should turn your hands right in. Well, if you want to break your fingers, because you're going to get hit on the end of the fingers. All you need is an angle where your palm is facing back into the court. You'll see a lot of blockers, as they get to the outside, they're going quickly, and they do that. And their palms are out. That's balls get hit off the hands and then go out. So really working on, if they do get in a bad position, they really want to work on angling that ball back in. That's a key thing with blocking, using your hands to face where you want the ball to go. I'll show you a couple of examples here of just individual blocking. And one of them is a Canadian, our middle, so you'll like that. So I thought I'd show you her. She does a very good job. But a couple of things with blocking, one-on-one blocking a lot, is what do you do when you are isolated one-on-one? What should you do as an outside blocker? What should you do as a middle blocker? And what we encourage our blockers to do is take a shot, take something. So I'll show you this one from, this is our Canadian here. Got nothing yet? Have it now? Got that. Okay. So you can see our middle, Corey, here. And so what we want her to do, as you can see, is she starts to go up here, and then bang. So she's taken something away from her. Rather than just going straight up, she's taken a shot away. We know this girl likes to hit towards zone one. Take it away from her. So have a blocking strategy of, okay, what does she like to do? Well, let's stop her doing that. Now it's hard in the middle because there's one of you and one of them, and the advantage lies with the hitter. So what are you going to do? Well, at least take something. Be aggressive in taking something. Now we haven't done a great job here because we try to hedge our bets a little bit by having her go across here. So that, okay, if we get it wrong, maybe we can put another digger in the spot. But have in this case, sorry, the middle blocker, just at least take a shot away. So you can see that she's made a good reach on that. And Corey, one thing I wouldn't advocate, I was watching this a little bit earlier. I think in the middle it's difficult, but Corey's only six foot tall, so she's not tall.
Is she from Calgary?
She left Bridge, Alberta. So for her, you watch it, this is, see where her hands go? They're still going. They're here somewhere. And I think, yes, as you can see, when she has to jump, you know, I said she's only 6 foot tall, so she gets some pretty good height, and it's partly due to that. But I think, you know, some teams you'll play that are faster in the middle in terms of the hitting the ball maybe on the way up a little more. The longer you spend with your hands down below the net, the tougher it's going to be for you to block. You can be a very effective blocker just by holding your hands and quickly jumping and maybe taking a bit of speed off the ball. Corey goes for the kill on everything. She maybe needs to just temper that a little bit more and touch a few more balls, but you know, that's just what she does. And the other one here, from our Cal, yeah, 16, 27. All right. When you're blocking on the outside, I think this is the one, 16. Yeah. All right. So a couple of things that I like about this, we've worked a lot with our players on, is where do most hitters hit the ball? Line or angle? Most, yeah, they'll hit line every now and then for sure, but they hit angle. Where do most blockers block? Usually straight up or even reaching outside their body. So getting you to take away what, like Corey did with taking that shot, and in this case, one of our outside players working on being able to take that angle, and you can see where her hands are there. So really in reaching in, taking that angle away from the hitter. Yeah, sure, the hitter could hit a sharper angle or the hitter could hit line. However, most of them, they don't. If the ball's set a little bit inside and they're chasing the ball in, they're going to hit the ball where they're running. Therefore, reach in and take that area away. Why don't we just stand here and block? Why don't we do that as opposed to, why do we want to promote the blocker reaching in as opposed to, why wouldn't they just go and stand here? We don't want them to do that. That's kind of a rhetorical question. You can answer it.
They're going to hit down the line straight away.
Well, they're going to hit down the line. All of a sudden, you're going to open up this back door area. And that's a hard one to defend. Very hard to defend. So you're going to end up with that opened up and a lot harder. At least here, if the hitter, for whatever reason, decides she can slide it down the line, she doesn't have a lot of area. And we have a digger there. So that reaching in is what we want. And you can see her palms, luckily, are kind of facing back down there. So she does a good job with that. I like what the middles. Middles, typically, when they get caught in the middle, exactly what you got, they just stand there. Typical middle. Get out there. Take your outside blocker some flowers. Get out there. Do something. Be ready for the tip. We don't want them running off the net, meaning back off the net. We want them going along the net. Just be useful for something. You may not be able to block, you may pick up something off the block, you may pick up a tip, something along those lines. So, you know, when the middles don't get it right, get out there and make a good go of that. So there are a couple of things from blocking. Any questions about that? I know it's kind of shooting over it very quickly, but... All right, so you're blocking, now you've mastered the art of blocking. So you're going to get the odd stuff blocks and good touches, etc. Now you've got to dig the ball in the backcourt. That's part 2 of getting the right defensive setup. So let's borrow a couple of you guys and do a few little very basic concepts. And we'll get you over here, because we can do this a lot closer. We don't need the net necessarily. So you can talk a lot about digging, about having a great attitude to getting after the ball. I definitely agree with that 100%. But there's a technical aspect to it as well. One of them is reading, again. It's very difficult as you get higher and higher level. So you're down low, ready to hit the ball, and the hitter does that. You can't dig that. You know, the ability to read and know the hitter's coming at this angle and adjust and see that, that's a skill in itself, and that's probably more applicable to the blocking and backcourt stuff we'll talk about later. But reading and getting in the right position is a big skill in what you need to do as far as digging. However, let's assume you do make a good read and you do get into a good position. What should you look like? So show me what you would look like as you're about to dig a ball. Yeah? All right, let's see. All right.
There you go.
Yeah, I like it. Oh, very off to there. All right, another one. Oh, okay, so a couple of things there. One, this, if you're down the line, you're going to get popped. The hand's in a neutral position, for want of a better word, just in a mid-body position. So let's come back out here now. Keep your hands in a mid-body position. So if the ball goes high, you can go there. Now I told you it was high, so you can do that. If the ball goes low, that's very good. Do that whole platform. So it enables you to be able to play balls in a greater range. So good body position, and I like the body position. It's nice and low. You want to be in the position as much as you can, so let's just get down low, where you really don't want to have to go down to get the ball. Now you don't get, it's very difficult to be down with your hands on the floor. That's extremely low. I like your feet width. Some people want a really wide base. I think a really wide base is hard to move from. Really narrow base is hard to get down there. So that's wider than shoulder width. I like that position. Okay, down low again, ready. You might be able to see, can you see her heels from where you are? There's a little bit of gap, a little light between the heel and the floor. So you've got a position that's pretty good in terms of being able to move from there, maybe. So look at this, right.
Here we go.
What are you moving for? You don't know where the ball's going. Right? Good. That's a key one. The ability to be able to make a move into a run or a step and then maybe two steps, something like that. So it's very difficult to do when your defenders have their feet in the air. And if you stop, and I'll do it, I haven't even looked at this, but let's back this up a bit. All right, let's grade Oregon State on how well. All right, here's hit a contact. All right. Setter, typical setter. She's not going to worry about any defence or covering or anything like that, but she'll set. Well-behaved DS, libero back there, by the look of it. There's contact just there. Yeah, I like her in position 5, left back. I think she's got one of her feet outside the sideline. I don't know about that, but I like she's stopped and low. Middle getting across, I'll give her a plus for that. Well, she's a setter. And then right back and middle back are both in the move of getting to be stopped. That's too late by that stage. The read needs to happen prior to the hit. Otherwise, as you're still doing this as they're hitting, you've limited the area that you can cover significantly. So, just get any video of your team and just stop it at the hit of contact on the other side and have a look at what your defenders are doing, where they are. And we spend, it's one of those, in coaching there's a lot of things that you say to your blue in the face. This is one of those things that you say. Getting into at least a good position. Are they going to be completely stopped, down there ready to dig a ball? Yes. That's what you want, so that's what you've got to encourage. However, the reality of the situation is they're not. That speed of moving from point A to point B is a big thing. Getting there, getting ready to play the ball. I would give her, maybe in right back here, half the props. She's not in too bad a position there, but being stopped and low. So, let's get back to that low down position there. So you're balanced, you've got one foot slightly ahead of the other. I think that's fine. I like it. Let's say you're a line digger. So put down on this sideline here and imagine the hit together. I like the digger to be, I think that's fine. Let's say you're on the line. I like the digger to have, you can have a foot slightly forward like that. You can have your feet parallel. Because in the end, your arms are where you're going to dig the ball into the middle of the court. Your arms are going to be flex the ball into the middle of the court. So, when I turn to a 45, I'm not so sure about that one. Some people will have their defender stand and face into the middle of the court. That's kind of hard because, so you like that, so go at 45 degrees, but you're watching me, I don't know, for me, it was never something that I felt when I played that it was comfortable. to be like that. I felt, you know, you've got a platform for a reason, that's to direct the ball. So you can direct the ball by having your feet here. It's a bit like passing. You know, people say, you know, if the target's over there, then let's face over there. And when they serve, and that's a hard thing to kind of just angle, bang. Ball hits, ball bounces. Angle of incidence equals angle of reflection. Well, that's for light coming off a mirror. I don't know how well it always works with ball off an arm, but you know, that kind of thing is, that's, you know, one of the things I think with defence is that the feet, I like you to be facing where the hitter's hitting the ball at you, and then you use your arms to deflect the ball from there. And the idea of defence is obviously if the ball's easy, so I put an easy ball to you, then it's going to be a perfect pass, like that. Even better maybe than that. But the harder we drive the ball in, well, it's even more perfect than the easy one. It's the wrong way around. Right? Maybe a little further forward, get it towards the 3-metre line. Like that. Like that. So, the harder driven the ball, you want to give yourself a chance to recycle the ball and play on. That's what you want to do. So, put it into the middle of the court. Height equals time. That's going to give people time. One, if the setter's in the front row, to get off the net, find the ball. Time for hitters to get back in good position, and then you get, you know, your best quality swing after that. So we work on our hitters really being able to hit the ball in the middle part of the court here. And so things you can do now. So your job is to dig to the middle part of the court, nice and high. You've got to catch the ball after you dig it. So dig it. No, you're not, but you've got to dig it over there. So what you would do, you could use some floor markers or anything with a tape. Just mark out a box here. I'd mark it out 2,000 millimetres by 2,000 millimetres, 2 metres square, right? Central part of the court there, and you've got to dig it and you've got to catch it. And that would be a point. That's a perfect dig. Let's just, you know, let's assume I'm driving the ball a little bit harder than what I actually am, but being able to dig and catch, or maybe left, or dig it. So what I want you to do, good thing there, you got the ball up by doing that. I want you to do that. I want you to just, if you want the ball up there, then angle up there. If you want the ball down low, then angle low. Just use your platform rather than once you start breaking your elbows, right? Like that. So high in the middle and catch it. That's perfect. And then catch. So that's a good drill for just being able to dig a ball nice and high, be balanced. It's very hard to do this drill when you fall over. Hard to get back up and get the ball. High enough that they can catch it gives them time, so they get a feel for how high they need to dig it for, where they need to dig it to. Yeah, so it's a simple one. The other one we do, alright, so let's back up a little bit more. And this is one to help with platform control. So Roselle, let's borrow you. You can be this person here. Natalie, you can be in straight line here. Another platform to manipulate the ball to where you want it to go. So you want this one to Roselle. Roselle, alright, pretty good. Second one to Natalie.
Yeah.
The one to Natalie. And then the third one to Natalie. Yeah, you broke a little bit, but that wasn't great. One more time, that's pretty good. So it's just a very simple thing of teaching the diggers how just to manipulate, just by getting that feel for how much they need to use their platform to get the ball either 1, 2 or 3. So that's a simple one as well. Right, so we talked about being in a good position. So we talked about being low, being stopped, ready to dig a ball. So let's get, the hardest part of this drill is the person holding the ball. Right, all we're doing, so you're getting into position on the line there, so let's get 3 people in the backcourt. Okay, so I want you on hitter contact, on my contact, to be stopped. I can hit the ball off here, I can hit the ball past there, I can tip and roll the ball. It's not always going to be coming off here. You need to be in a good, balanced, low body position to dig a ball if it's hit straight at you, or be able to move a ball if it's deflected, or if the ball's tipped. You got it? Right, just throw me that card over there. Okay. That's pretty good. All right, are we started moving, what I want you to do is wait until the ball clears the block. That means gets past it or hits and deflects and goes. So let's be ready for that. I may hit it, I may not. That's right. Don't move forward, the ball goes past the block. Okay. So be stopped on contact. So, alright, so now what we're going to do is this. Make it a little bit tougher. Let's start in the base position. The ball now gets set to the outside. So I want you to adjust. Alright, ready? Go. Good. Good held position. Alright. Start in base position. Go. Adjust. So did you move before I hit that? No. Okay. Bad blocker. Alright, let's go. So start again, watch out. Start in base position. And adjust. Then run it down. Good. So more. Start in base position. Go. Back there. Oh, she's off running. So this drill, the players love it. It's fun. But the idea of it is for the person that's in the backcourt to hold their position and not move early. Don't hit the Swiss ball. What, you got fit ball as well? Swiss ball? That was one difference. Australia calls that a Swiss ball. I don't know why. Doesn't matter. But anyhow, life. So you don't want to hit that every time. You want to miss it. You want to tip the ball. You want to make it with some level of realism. It's not completely realistic, but like a lot of things with blocking and defence, if you only ever do sixes for blocking and defence, the thing you miss out on is the repetition. How do you get really good at digging if you get a ball one every 22? Or one deflection every 30 balls. So you need to have some basic level of simulation leading into then what I think is the most constructive practice, which is getting out there and having live hitters, because live hitters throws everything out. So the fit ball drill is a good one, but like I said, don't hit off every time, but it's a good way of really getting an idea of whether your players are stopped and ready to go and how well they move from that base position. Questions about digging? Okay, go.
I don't know if this is relevant to everybody. I at elementary school, I found a lot of kids, you're saying, use their arms as the platform. They would end up baseball swinging around, and I had to make them use their whole body, like in one solid piece, to get it to go. Do you have any comments about that?
When they're younger, they thrash at the ball. So that fine motor skill, it really does. It just takes time. You know, you can do something simple like, let's get that in there. Result. You go on the other side, right about say here, just there, and then in the same spot relative to there. Just get to work on facing you, and then we're going to go right, left, right, left, right, left. Ready? Right, and pass it straight back here, then left. And then so to get that, yep, straight back here, we'll go a little quicker. There. Left. There. Good. So just getting them used to that, you know, not to using their platform.
And I think also with the little ones, they have to get their legs into it a bit more, because that's a lot of, you've got the power in your arms, right? So.
Well, it's getting your feet in position, and you know, I think if you look here at where your body is when you pass the ball, after you pass it, freeze. So pass it that way. Yeah, I like that. You know, it's not a low position like it is for digging. It's kind of a medium position of getting them to be in that when they pass a little bit. And that, you know, going from medium to high is that leg movement that's going to assist as well. But, you know, I think just getting used to this, it's hard, but volleyball is such an ugly game for kids. It's a horrific game for kids. You know, because one, it's not innate to move, so they stand still. And two, the ball coming at them and using your body as a racket is unheard of. What sport uses your body as a racket? You know, R-A-C-Q-U-E-T, whatever. Not R-A-C-K-E-T, but a racket. They don't. And so getting used to moving the ball around using this, not a stick or something like that, takes time. And, you know, I think I like the lighter balls that they use and so on, so that, you know, because obviously pain's a factor with little kids as well. Oh, that kills me, but, you know, it'll make you tougher eventually. Plus, they'll eventually get the concept of that. It's just tough when it's little, because it's just, like I said, it's a very unnatural game. It's not very hard to learn to do this. It's not hard because the number one force on the earth is telling you that. What we're doing here is we're fighting the number one force on earth, which is gravity. You want to keep the ball in the air. So, just like I said, it's just a tough concept. So,
Just to give him a little support on what he's trying to say, maybe you teach him how to do the basics on the platform, on front footwork, right over left, knees bent, tray out, platform, and just toss them.
Yeah.
Or use, believe it or not, tennis balls.
Oh, yeah.
I just learned that the other day. Ruth Nelson.
we had a guy in Australia, a coach many years ago, tied 2 antennae to some young players, just here, here, and here, just to get that concept. Of course, they had antennas sticking way out the back here, but just of that keeping their arms straight. I have never done it. I'm not so sure it would work.
Just make sure you take them off after practice.
Yeah.
We were always losing.
Because they weren't home with their
And we were always losing antenna.
Exactly.
Damn it. So yeah, so anyhow. All right, systems we better get into quickly. I want to show you a couple of things I said about Pac-12. Okay, so let's look at all of them. All sorts of systems work for a variety of reasons. Generally speaking, you want to be where the ball gets hit to. That makes the most sense. Or you want to put your block in the place that the hitter hits the most balls at what spot along the net. So the basic concepts of that are the beginning of your defensive philosophy. Part 2 of it is, what are you prepared to give up? In other words, let's say you have, let's go in the back here. So imagine our blockers are doing their thing. Let's get a middle back right. So let's get him 165. And yeah, so let's, and back there, right. So let's say we've got a basic perimeter defense. And maybe the middle back has a little bit of right, okay, maybe more up, maybe deeper, but somewhere around there. You're giving up probably, the ball was tipped here. That gives that up. Maybe with a rotation defense, so let's rotate around here, come up a little bit, you might get a little deeper. You're probably more prepared then to give up the middle back of the court because you don't have somebody there. You may play, let's imagine you're a left right player and you get off the net and you come way into here. Let's imagine you play that, we call that orange sometimes. Then you're prepared to give up that very sharp angle shot to left front. You've got to decide what do you want to give up with your system. So that's one thing. 2, what's the capability of your defenders? Are they great? Are they very quick? They move well and they read well. If they do, you've probably got more flexibility. If they don't, you maybe want to have something that's a little bit more standard. I'll show you Utah here from last year. They play a very standard defense. Let's say they serve. So, their defence against the left side attack, so you have their wing diggers, their line diggers a little bit inside the line, middle backs pretty much in the middle of the court, 2 to 3 metres off the baseline, there. And their left front, their off blocker there, in a pretty, she's not back on the 10-foot line, or 3 metre line, but thereabouts. So, we'll have a look at this time here. So now we're looking at the ball going to the right side. Middles move just a little bit from the middle of the court. Line diggers, not really ready to dig, maybe they don't have to be, but inside the line there, off blocker. So, it's a fairly standard defence. There's not a lot of change. Let's maybe look at this one. This one's a little different. Don't see this one much at all. All right, let's back it up a bit. So she serves. This, is their setter? No, it's not their setter, but, oh yes it is. You remember this one last year? All right, look where she is. Yeah, this is their right back, right in the middle of the court. Then, let's look at the next one. This, yeah. All right, so let's have it, we'll back it up a little bit. It's their setter, she's here in left back, position 5. Where she's going to. Just goes straight there. Genius. Oh, she's right in exactly the right spot. Right, genius. She's there, the ball over it went. So, if we look at when we were attacking here, I talked about it, what are they giving up?
6 back.
Yeah, they're giving up the middle back. Now, if you want to give the hitter a seam like this, that's dangerous. It's dangerous for the person behind here. And definitely it's dangerous to protect that area as well. So, you know, there's got to be some reliance on your block to be able to take that area away. But this is the system that they used last year. It's interesting, in matches you can be playing perimeter all the time and they might be tipping you a lot. And you could switch into this all of a sudden. Coaches don't pick that stuff up, very rarely. Hitters definitely don't pick that stuff up. So if the tip's working, the tip's working. And they tip and then we get it out and then we go back into our normal defence. I think having the ability to change what you do defensively periodically is a good thing, not a bad thing. You don't have to have a multitude. You don't have to have 4 or 5 different ones that you play and you change them and you use them all for different hitters. They're things that you can make a little adjustment on. One of the things we did last year a lot was we had a smaller setter. And we were worried that people would hit over her down the line in that area. And there was a fair worry. A lot of people hit over her and down the line. So we went to a bit more of a modified rotation. So 18, 17, right about here. I'll stop that. So this is us playing Arizona last year. This is our setter here. So she's going to move across. So you can see there, we moved our 6th player across a little bit more, just to protect this kind of, you know, it's not line, but it's kind of seam-ish, backdoor-ish, that area. But you can see we've certainly moved her well out of middle back. We didn't do it for everyone. Some hitters were good at hitting over our setter, so they went that way a lot and they liked hitting that shot. So we just tried to double up a little bit on our protection and move our middle back around a little bit further like that. Some teams do that, some don't. It's really up to you, but I think having that ability to have a little bit more give and take in your defensive system can help you out of situations. So you're going to be having some limitations at times in the game where, hey, you may, if they're hitting the ball where you aren't, then change.
Mark, did you do anything different for slide?
No, well basically, no, I'll show you. I've got one here actually. 42.50, it's in the same game.
Mark, capitalize need to put in parking meter.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I'm talking too much. Might be indeed. Okay, so we compress a little more in. So you can see here, the slide hitters will often, they'll hit the ball down more one-on-one. We definitely, as you can see, work very hard on that left front blocker being aggressive in reaching in. And especially, you know, very rarely do you see the hitter running along with the ball out in front of them. More often than not, they're running the balls inside them. You know, they're out here, as she was, back up, and because the ball's inside them, they can really only do one thing, and that's hit angle. So if we look here, so we'll go back. All right. So if we just slowly bring it along, you can see the hitter is way ahead of the ball. She's way out there already. So if that ball drops anywhere inside the antenna, then she's probably going to be hitting at angle. So one of the things we're going to look at is and it's, you know, it's a little higher. More often than not, we don't necessarily have the middle out there. The job of the middle then is to move along the net. But we all, like I said, we're a little more compressed in court, knowing that the slide hitter will tend to hit it down. You know, if the ones that are hard to defend are the ones that can really thread the ball down the line. But it's a tough thing to do because, you know, you've got to get that speed and set right and where you are in relation to that ball.
But you do have the libero covering the line shot.
We do, yep. And what we try to, more often than not, expect to happen here is, because this player, the middle, will often not be there, their job is to get in behind here. Because they often won't be there, so then that enables that line digger to dig the hard hit ball. But yeah, as you can see, our left back, middle back are a little bit further in court than they normally would be. So yeah, so look at your team. Are you capable of doing a couple of different defences? Do you need to? That's one thing, because hey, if you don't need to, if what you do works perfectly all the time, that's fantastic. But if it doesn't, hey, what adjustments can you make? You know, what do you do against a team that may tip you a lot? You know, do you want your setter up? Do you want your setter handling that first ball necessarily? You may not. So you could have, we play an orange defence sometimes where we'll bring our left front way in the middle of the court or even further across if they're going to tip. And then we'll just set and hit a ball out of the middle of the court for her. She can't get back outside. So you know, having that ability to be able to have a couple of different systems, I think is, like I said, it can be an advantage. We spend a lot of time on all these different things. Okay, we can't score this way, let's do this, or let's do this. But defensively, like I said, you'll see a lot of times teams that just don't ever change. So that'd be one thing I'd say. Spend maybe a little bit more time on educating the players. And the other thing is for the players to be able to read. And it's very hard. It's very hard to set up reading drills. You know, because once it's a live ball, then you know you get a limited chance to really say, okay, the hitter's coming at this angle, where's she most likely to hit the ball? Move where you can see the ball. Hey, the hitter's further off the net. When she's further off the net, where's she going to hit the ball to? So, you know, spending time during a practice when things are happening, reminding them of what things they can look at to get, you know, an ability to get just that fraction of a second quicker into the right spot. Or the hitter runs in like this. A number of times hitters run in like this and no one thinking, what are they watching? So, one, reading's about watching the right thing, obviously, number one. But then number two is making that adjustment necessary that you need. And when a ball's been hard driven, higher level you get, if you don't read and the ball's not slowed down at the net, then it's a very difficult thing to dig. So I think it's you know, they talk about the 6 skills of volleyball. I think reading's number 7. I don't know, and in order, it's probably number 1, but it's one of the skills I think that gets brushed over a lot. And I think that's a big advantage of beach volleyball. You better be able to read. Because you've got a lot of court, 8 metres by 8 metres. You got 64 square metres there to cover. So, you know, and it's very difficult to cover it if you can't read. That's gone way over. Oh, way over. Sorry.
It's all good.
I've got like 200 more things here.
Sorry.
Okay. Sorry about that. All right.